Saturday, everyone. We got some fun times coming your way. We got a little sprinter. We got a little sprinter for you guys today to close out the week. So it's gonna be a fun time, big numbers, but one time through to get you into the weekend. So what we got for you? We got a nice little warm up today. Focus on the lower body. Overhead good morning for 5. Single leg good morning with rotation for 3 aside. Into our narrow squat for 3 to 5 reps at a 3-3-3 tempo. So really slowing things down, working on some technique work and opening up those hips, knees, and ankles. Single leg RDL, charge up those hamstrings a little bit for 5 aside at a 3-second eccentric. You can load that or not, it's up to you. Sumo Squat for 3 to 5 at a 3-3-3 tempo as well, just to open things up for that lower body. 2 to 3 rounds. Then we're going to move on to the floor a little bit, work on some bridge work just to charge up your glutes and hamstrings. We're going to work a single leg bridge for 5 aside, bridge pullback for 3 at a 5 to 10 second hold in that contraction position. Bridge with foam roller, we're going to tweak that bridge a little bit so we'll have some fun there for 5 to 10 reps for 1 to 2 rounds in total. So just a little charger for those glutes and hamstrings just to get ready for what's to come. From there, we're going to shift into our dip. We're going to work on a little bit of skill work with some rotation. So we're going to work on some dumbbell push dip or pause dips. Alright, for 3 at a 3-second hold in the bottom. Then we're going to do 3 push presses, getting that dumbbell overhead. And then we're going to take it and work on that overhead dip for 3 reps at a 3-second hold in the bottom of that dip with the dumbbell overhead. From there, we're going to go into a kneeling position and work our half Turkish get-up for 5 aside. And we're going to use that to work on just, again, heating up that upper body and getting that core ready for a little bit of rotation work. We'll hit that 1 to 2 rounds, prime yourself up, and then we're going to move in right into the work set. So if you'd like to do a little practice round or some warming up for the lunges, you can. But the work set today, one time through, 50 total count lunges, into 50 plank knee to elbows, alternating, into 50 dumbbell push press. Whew! Yeah! It's going to be a good time. One time through that, we'll have some fun with it. We'll talk about those movements momentarily. Let's get you warmed up, let's get you fired up, ready to go. Okay, let's get those legs fired up and that body ready to go. Let's take the arms up big and tall. We're just going to reach and stretch it to one side. We're going to come back up, little side bend again, working that side body. We'll take it all the way down to the floor, touching those toes. We'll walk up those shins. We're going to come down, framing a foot. We're going to step it back into our lizard and squaring up those hips. We'll take the inside hand up to the sky. We're going to come back down. We're going to take the outside hand up to the sky and then bring it down. And keeping those hips nice and square, we're going to flow back into that nice little split. And we're going to come back into that lizard. And then we're going to come back into the split and then back into the lizard. One more time. Back into the split and then back to the lizard. Outside hand's going to reach out. We'll plant that hand. Inside hand's going to reach out. And then we'll come back down. We'll set those arms, step back into your down dog, reaching those hips nice and high. Just walk your heels out a little bit, nice and steady, nice and smooth. Okay, and we'll come back into our plank. I'm going to step that other foot up, nice and squaring those hips. Inside hand's going to reach. We'll come back down with the arm. Outside hand's going to reach up. We'll come back down. Keeping those hips square to the floor, we're going to straighten out that front leg a bit. We'll plant the foot, straighten out that front leg, plant the foot, and straighten out that front leg, and plant the foot. Outside hand, reach up, plant the hand, inside hand's going to reach up, and then plant the hand. Step her back into that down dog, setting those shoulders nice and strong overhead. We're going to walk our heels out. Nice and slow, just waking things up, making sure things feel okay. And we'll come back into our plank, pulling those ribs in, tiptoe those feet up. I'm going to roll ourselves all the way up, big stretch. Clasping those fingers, press up and reach. And reach. Bring those hands down. Awesome. All right, you guys, let's get you fired up. If you'd like to do some gentle warm-up for yourself, pause the video, continue on with that, a little bit of upper body, lower body, whatever you need to do. But we're going to start you off with that upper body, that lower body focus, and get you moving. All right, so our first movement of the day is going to be that overhead good morning. So I personally like to do this in my sumo stance because it helps open up my hips a little bit more. You can do this in whatever stance you'd like, that regular squat stance, narrow, sumo, whatever you want. It's still really early in the warm-up, so like I say, I'm going to go with my sumo stance. Also, if you'd like to do a couple reps of just a good morning, just to heat up the hinge, there's nothing wrong with that as well. So first things first, I'm going to focus on that hinge. I'm going to get my hand on my chest and my ribs just to make sure that I'm nice and stable through here. Squeezing my glutes, I'm going to pull my hips back into that hinge, keeping my big toe flat on the floor. My knees are soft, and I'm going to stand up nice and tall. So now when we move into our overhead position, we want to maintain the integrity of that hinge, but we're going to maintain that overhead position as well. So I'm pressing into my overhead, I set my ribs, my glutes, I pull back in that exact same hinge, except I'm reaching and holding those arms overhead. So you may find that now that we've added the overhead position, that we can't quite get as deep in that hinge, and that's okay. Just listen to the body now in terms of where we can go with that overhead position to make sure we're maintaining a nice straight line through that hinge. After the overhead good morning, we're going to come back to a narrower stance. We're going to work on that single leg good morning with rotation. So we're going to squeeze and set our glutes. We're going to bring our hands together. We're going to pull the hips back, maintaining that nice straight back position. We're going to rotate towards that lead leg, and then we're going to stand up nice and tall. So again, we're focusing on that good hinge first, weight through that midfoot. Once we get to the back portion of that hinge, we start that rotation, elbow to knee, and then come back up. We have to remember too is if we can't get that elbow to the knee and physically touch it, that's okay. We just want to make sure we're working on that range, that balance, that we can get that nice mid-range rotation. From there, we're going to stay narrow. We're going to bring our feet inside of our normal squat stance. So if my normal squat stance is here, anything inside of that can be considered a narrow squat. And like we've mentioned before, that can change day to day, hour to hour, who knows, all right, week to week, all right? But it depends on where our body's at. So listen to your body and give yourself the proper kind of narrow stance for you today. So I'm going to get myself set up. Right at this moment, I have about a fist distance between my feet. I'm going to stand nice and tall, set my glutes. I'm going to pull my hips to my heels, so my normal squat mechanics. I'm going to keep my weight centered over my midfoot, and I'm going to really focus on keeping my weight flat through those feet and standing tall. Okay? So really focusing on those normal squat mechanics. You may find that you can't get as deep, and that's okay. Really focus on the flat foot, weight through the midfoot, and if you start feeling things shift forward or back, just stop the squat, come back up. We're moving at a nice slow tempo of a 3-3-3 pace, so we're going to have some time to feel every inch of that movement. After the narrow squat, we're going to work on our single leg RDL. So our single leg RDL is going to allow us again to kind of charge up those glutes and hamstrings. So I'm going to set myself up with a kickstand leg, toes down. My balance and weight is all distributed through this leg. I can pretend like I'm holding a dumbbell. You can load this if you'd like. We squeeze our glutes, we set our hips nice and square, and we're going to pull the hip back into that nice hinge that we use and practice in our good mornings. My hands are going to come to my knee or just below, and I'm going to stand up nice and tall. The big thing here with this one is really focusing on keeping my weight through my midfoot. So I don't want to let myself roll back. And it's very common that as I do this and I pull my hips back, I start to shift my weight into the heel. I want to make sure that I keep my foot flat, big toe down, weight through the midfoot. Once I've done those 5 per side of the 3-second eccentric, we're going to move into our sumo squat. So from our narrow stance, we're going to come into a wider stance, and we're going to really focus on pushing those knees out to the side just a little bit more because it's higher probability that we're going to have our knees collapse in on this sumo. So feet are flat, weight through the midfoot, glutes are tight. I pull the hips to my heels, pushing those knees out, making sure my feet stay flat and nice and stable, and I work that good squat. So the same squat mechanics that I use for my narrow and my regular squat, I'm going to use in that sumo just with a little more emphasis out. As a quick recap, we have an overhead good morning for 5, single leg good morning with rotation for 3 per side, narrow squat for 3 to 5 at a 3-3-3 tempo, single leg RDL for 5 a side at a 3-second eccentric, sumo squat for 3 to 5 at a 3-3-3 tempo again, and we're going to hit that for 2 to 3 rounds. Give yourself that time to kind of warm the body up, make sure everything feels good, and work on those key points of performance, because they're going to help later on down the road. Now, pause the video, take it down. We're going to lay on the floor for a while next and work on some bridge work. All right, so we're going to work on some bridge work. So we're going to start off with a single leg bridge. So I'm going to lay on my back, and I'm going to get my feet just outside of my fingers. I'm going to keep my fingers down into the floor so I can brace through those shoulders, keeping that back nice and stable. I'm going to pull my ribs in so I get nice and tight here and engage the ribs. I'm going to lift my leg, and I'm going to keep that body balanced. Now, I'm going to drive and squeeze, lifting and keeping my hips balanced and level, and lower down. My goal here with this is to keep those ribs in, squeeze to open up the hip, but I'm really working on opening up the hip and not breaking through the back position to get a little higher. I want to make sure that I'm squeezing and trying to squeeze and set that glute. Now don't worry about going too high. I want you to think about just maintaining as high an extension as you can while keeping the hips level. You'll do 5 per side, and then we're going to move on to our bridge pullback. So we've been doing this a little bit more often, so we should be getting a little more comfortable with this. My fingers, again, just outside my heels. I'm going to push my hands into the floor a bit to open up my pecs a bit. Pulling the ribs in, I'm going to squeeze and lift into my bridge. So from here, my weight is pretty flat-footed base. I'm going to shift my weight to the balls of the feet. I'm going to pull my heels back towards my glutes, maintaining my rib position, pulling my heels back, feeling that hamstring say hi, and then slowly ease out of it to come down. Now, the big thing here in terms of the shifting of our weight, you want to make sure that once I'm here and I go to shift my weight to the balls of the feet, you're going to feel some space between your heel and the floor. But the big thing is we're not pushing into the toes. We're not trying to lift the heel. It's just kind of a byproduct of us shifting our weight to the balls of the feet. And if it happens, it happens. If you're like, oh, my heels are still there, but I feel my weight in the balls of my feet, that's okay too. You might not notice there's a big lift in the heel, but we're not trying to push, because that's going to cause extra tension in the calf and really kind of cause us a little bit extra grief opposed to what we're trying to achieve by engaging the hamstring. All right? Our next bridge that we're going to work on is going to involve a foam roller. If you don't have a foam roller, you can use a yoga block, you can use a little throw pillow, just a rolled up towel, just something that's about this size roughly that we can squeeze into. So this is going to feel a little different in terms of how we normally do our bridges. The bridge itself is exactly the same. We're going to pull our ribs in, we're going to get ourselves base through the hands, we're going to get set, but this time we're going to take that foam roller and we're going to squeeze it in between our knees. So our feet might come a little narrower, and that's okay. Ribs are in, feet are down, squeeze in the foam roller, and then I'm going to squeeze and lift. So I'm going to have a slightly different sensation as I work on this, and I'm going to keep my ribs pulled in, squeeze and lift, keep my ribs pulled in, squeeze and lift, and ribs in. So you might find that you can't get up as high, and that's okay. We're working on a little bit of different little engagement through the adductors, so we're going to work on that little squeeze. So it's very common, if we're doing this for the first time, when we go to lift, so we start squeezing the foam roller, then we go to lift, and then we notice like, oh, I'm not squeezing the foam roller anymore. That's pretty normal. So we want to just think about focusing on that gentle squeeze inwards as we lift and squeeze the glute, because there's a lot going on there. We want to focus on those ribs, squeezing, and staying balanced through that nice foot. So take your time with that one. We have 5 to 10 reps. We're going to move a little slower for that. There's no tempo, but don't rush through those. It's just a nice chance to change that up and work on a little bit of different engagement. As a quick recap, we have a single leg bridge for 5 aside, bridge pullback for 3 at 5 to 10 seconds of that contraction, and then we have a bridge with foam roller, 5 to 10 reps, 1 to 2 rounds. We're going to use that to charge up the glutes and hamstrings, get those legs ready for what's to come. And now we're going to fire up that dumbbell and get used to going overhead. So pause the video, take down those bridges, get yourself ready, and let's have some fun overhead. Our next phase of work is going to really focus in on that push press. So with the push press, what we're going to work on is those skills of working on that nice down. So I'm going to grab my dumbbell. What we're going to do is we're going to take the dumbbell, we're going to clean it up to the shoulder. So we're going to take the hips back, take the dumbbell to the knee, push through those legs, get that nice little power clean. From here, I'm going to rest the dumbbell or dumbbells on the shoulder. So I'm in my good front rack, my feet are under my hips or just outside. I squeeze my glutes and set my ribs, so I'm nice and stable in this standing position. Now with this standing position, I'm going to work a pause dip first. So I'm going to pull my hips straight down. Hips are stacked under the shoulders the entire time, and I just hold this position with flat foot contact for 3 seconds. And then I stand. I'm going to do it again for 3 reps. So I'm just keeping that flat foot contact. I'm based through the midfoot, all right, and I just stand tall. Once I'm done my reps for that, I'm going to work into the push press. So I'm going to get that dip, no pause, dip and press. So we get that nice overhead drive. Nice and vertical in the dip, flat foot, and come up. From here again, dip, push. Once I've done my reps here, I'm going to hold this overhead position, and then I'm going to dip, holding and pressing into that dumbbell the entire time, keeping the ribs in, glutes tight, knees out, and stand. You may find as you dip, you may not have the same range as you did before, but we want to make sure that we're really working to keep those feet flat and the weight right down through the midfoot like they were in our normal dip with the dumbbell in the front rack. It's very common that as we have this overhead position, as we dip, we shift forward. So we really have to fight for that nice square position. So if you notice your range is limited, that's okay, all right? Take your time, work to your edge, and build that range over time. Very, very important. Now after all that pause work and the dip work, we're going to go into another overhead exercise where we're going to go into our kneeling position. We're going to work our half Turkish get-up. And you can do this with load or without load. So what we need to do, you're going to grab ourselves a dumbbell, grab ourselves some space on the floor, and we're going to get ourselves set up in this kneeling hip position. Now with this kneeling hip position, the front leg, knee over the heel, back knee under the hip, under the shoulder. The knee that's in front is the hand that's going to be overhead, holding the dumbbell. So we're going to hold this active overhead position, ribs are in, glutes are tight, other hand is out to the side. We're going to take our body down to the side into that nice kind of semi-side plank position. Dumbbell is stacked over the shoulder, shoulders are over the shoulder, and the shoulders over the hand. From here I come back up into this kneeling position again, into this overhead position. And you'll notice that as I shift my torso, my arm is always pointing to the ceiling. And I'm really working to keep that armpit forward in that nice, stable position overhead. So take your time with these. I like to hold on either side of the movement, so the down position and the kneeling position, for a couple seconds just to show control and to brace on the movement of the torso. So it's a really nice opportunity to work on some lateral rotation work and a chance to really test that shoulder in maintaining that nice position. As a quick recap for that, you guys, we have a dumbbell pause dip for 3 at a 3-second hold, dumbbell push press for 3, dumbbell overhead dip for 3 at a 3-second hold, and then 5 per side half Turkish get-ups, loaded or unloaded, depending on how comfortable you are with that movement set. 1 to 2 rounds of that to prime things up. Pause the video, take that down, get your shoulders, get your core ready. We're going to come at you with these movements and get you fired up and ready to go. Okay, the 3 movements in our workout today, the lunge, plank knee to elbow, and the dumbbell push press. Very straightforward movements, we do them often, but they're all very, very challenging in their own right. So luckily enough, we only have to do them 1 time. With the lunge today, you can choose to load it lightly if you'd like to, or just keep it empty-handed and go for steady and go for volume. I'm also okay with the lunge being done back or front. It's up to you. Whatever is going to give you the best lunge position for you today, that's where I want you to go. But regardless of the lunge being back or forward or even the standing lunge variation, there's some key points to the lunge that we want to make sure we're maintaining. So my hands can go wherever they need to be for balance if I'm not loading the dumbbell. If I am going to load with a dumbbell, I can hold suitcase, goblet, or front rack, whatever you'd like to do for that. Now with this lunge, we want to make sure that when we step, we're staying about a squat stance width, and our length is going to differ to person depending on our height. So when we step forward, we want to step and lower straight down so that my back knee is under my hip, under my shoulder, and my front knee stays stacked over top of my heel. My torso is tight and I'm stable, and I'm just touching the knee to the floor if I can, just a light touch. Now if you can't touch the floor without crashing, I don't want you to go to the floor. Just go to where you feel comfortable, find that position, and make sure we're working with control. Same rules apply to the back lunge. So if I step back, same idea. It's a little more challenging for balance for some, but for some, it's a lot easier to find that vertical shin position. So we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up to challenge ourselves to where we need it to be. Now our other option for our standing lunge is, for our lunge is our standing lunge. So we start with our squat stance, we set up our stance, and we just stay here in this kind of 50-50 position. Legs are straight, I'm balanced equally between my feet, and I'm going to come straight down, straight up, straight down, straight up. If you're choosing to do the standing lunge today, since there's a ton of reps here, what I would do is do 5, 5, 5, 5, and just break it up every 5 reps, switching your feet to give you a nice little break. All right, and just kind of give yourself that kind of idea of that alternating back lunge. Once the lunge is done, we're going to come into a plank knee to elbow, and this is kind of a cool exercise. It can be really kind of sneaky on the shoulders as well as the core. So what I'm going to do is get into a nice plank position. My feet are together, my hands are just outside the shoulders but under the shoulders. I'm going to push the shoulders to the ceiling and pull my ribs in. Now my upper body is going to stay completely still and my hips are going to stay level. I'm going to pull my leg up and out to the outside of my tricep or my elbow. And then I'll alternate. And I'm going to work on that nice smooth touch if I can. And I'm going to work on that side kind of pull of the leg. So I squeeze my body, get nice and tight, pull the leg to the outside, and pull the leg to the outside. I'm not trying to go super fast here. I'm just trying to keep a nice smooth rhythm, maintaining that good plank position. So if you feel your core disengage or that shoulder activation, so we want to keep those shoulders in a little protracted position, so we're actively pushing to the ceiling. If you feel your shoulders start to sink, take a break. Take a moment, take a knee, shake yourself out, because as much of it is a hip and core exercise, those shoulders are going to be gassed by the end of that 50. So make sure you're focusing on that shoulder position, and we're bringing that knee up around the outside. It's a cool little exercise. Take the time to try and make contact, but we're not trying to aggressively make contact with our tricep or our elbow. We got 50 total count reps, and then we finish off with our dumbbell push press. We covered the push press just not too long ago in our warm-up, so if you need some points of performance, please scroll back, rock that, get yourself going. But if you have a single dumbbell, like the standing lunge, what I'll get you to do is alternate after every 5 reps, switch side, alternate after every 5 until you've hit your 50 reps in total. If you're using 2 dumbbells, obviously you'll just do 50 reps total count with those arms, and I want you to make sure we're push pressing and not jerking. So if you feel those knees starting to soften, make sure we get a little break, and then we get that good drive through those legs. So we have 50, 50, 50. Lunge, plank knee to elbow, dumbbell push press for 50. Done. One time through. It's going to be a fun little sprint. It's going to be gassing, but I want you to have some fun with it and enjoy. As always, you guys, work for quality, challenge yourself with the loading, and have a good time with this one. It's a nice close for the week. That with those lunges, you'll probably be feeling for later on throughout the weekend and or on Monday saying, "Hi, I'm back again." All right, so just keep that in mind. Those lunges may have a little bit of effect throughout the weekend and the day. So on Sunday, perhaps maybe go for a little walk, get those legs moving, and keep them active throughout the weekend. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll come back at you on Monday with some more fun programming. Super pumped to hear about how this one goes. And yeah, let me know. Have fun. We'll see you soon.